So after I posted this on my Facebook, someone wrote me a response. He was like, how is this different from being obsessive or looking up to a writer or an artist or a musician or whatever? You know, how is watching basketball any better or worse than listening to Beethoven or making art? How is that better than worshiping, say, Michelangelo? And then my answer was that it depends on whose perspective you're taking and your particular goals in life, whatever.
A relativist will tell you that one thing isn't necessarily better than the other. Listening to Lady Gaga or listening to Eminem or watching basketball isn't necessarily better or worse than writing operas or listening to Beethoven or reading Sartre.
Let's say from an elitist perspective, an elitist will tell you that, objectively speaking, listening to Beethoven really is better than listening to Nicki Minaj or Lady Gaga or Justin Bieber, because it takes more effort and more intellectual ability, more training to become someone who can appreciate classical music. And it takes 20 years to have the capacity or the ability to write something like a Ninth Symphony. It takes like 10, 15 years to master the violin. But how many years does it take to appreciate Baby Baby? Or how many years does it take to create or to fabricate someone like Lady Gaga? Like, how many years does that take? You give someone homeless person who has never been to school Justin Bieber, and they'll probably dance to it. They can appreciate it without any training or educational background. But if you want to appreciate an opera, if you want to write an opera, it takes years of training. So an elitist will say because of that, it takes more intellectual power. It takes more time and effort to understand opera or classical music. So it's better than Lady Gaga. So, and elitists will also tell you that sport is. Oh, we'll get to that later. But if you're a pragmatist, if you're looking at it from a usefulness point of perspective, then you can say that whatever it benefits your life at that point, whatever is useful to you, whatever works is good for you. So let's say if you're a college philosophy student who is going to write a paper and you want to be a philosopher as you grow up. And of course, reading Sartre or reading Wittgenstein is going to be more beneficial to you than, say, watching basketball. So he can justify that. He said, I'm going to be a philosopher, so watching basketball for me is a waste of time because it's not as useful to my life and my happiness, my moral sentiment, whatever. And a person who is struggling to make the D1 basketball team or get a scholarship, of course, for him, reading Wittgenstein or reading Heidegger is not going to help. He's better off watching Kobe Bryant and learning from him. So for him, pragmatically speaking, he's better off, it's more right for him, more right for him to watch sports. So that's a pragmatist perspective. And if you're a utilitarian, can't pronounce this fucking word. If you're a utilitarian like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, you argue that whatever makes a society happier is better. So let's say if you live in a society with 100 people and 98 of those people love to watch basketball, and because of basketball they're happier. And as a society, you're more happy when everyone watches basketball. You're more, as a collective whole, you're happier. And that 2% of the individual of the population that hated basketball, they have no say because the majority who created the greatest amount of happiness will win over because more happiness wins. So that's the utilitarian perspective. But Mill also said that there are higher and lower pleasures. So this is what I want to talk about. What makes something more worthwhile to pursue? Like, how can you say that? Well, for Mill, there are two pleasures. The higher is for intellectuals and mind and spiritual pleasure, and then there's bodily pleasure for sex and food and sports and drugs and alcohol. All that stuff is the lower pleasure, he said. And he had this very famous quote. He said that it is better to be a human dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. It is better to be a Socrates unhappy than a homeless man happy. So, but he also said that if you pick the lower one, it's because you haven't experienced the former. If you pick the lower pleasure, it's because you don't know how awesome high arts and how awesome literature and science is. So he said that once you have experienced the higher arts, once you've listened to Beethoven and operas, and once you've discovered this theory of evolution or whatever, you won't want to go back into watching The Simpsons or watching American Idol or cheering for Jeremy Bentham and Jeremy Lin, because you know that it benefits you intellectually, morally, to engage in the higher arts. And and he said that if you want to indulge in the lower bodily pleasures, that's fine. You can only do that if you have experienced a higher one. So you can only go down after you've climbed up. So that's his point. So like for me, like let's just take me as an example. Look, I'm an elitist. I can draw and play the violin. So can I indulge in Lady Gaga? Can I go to the clubs and dance to Justin Bieber? Can I watch basketball? Yes, I can. Why? Because I have it all figured out. I have the intellectual and the existential crisis thing behind me now. So I can look at all those mindless endeavors with from a rational and objective intellectual perspective. I can analyze it, and I can do all this stupid mindless shit because I can see through it. That's basically his point. Like, say if you want to indulge in those shit, you have to know the higher things first. So then basically his reason is that the higher arts engages the mind and spirits more. So how do you know that? Like, how do you determine that? Are you gonna put someone on their brain? Maybe you can do that now with the modern neuroscience. You can put someone on their brain scan, and then scan his brain when he's listening to Lady Gaga, or versus when he listens to Beethoven, versus when he watches porn or basketball, or when he watches avant-garde David Lynch or whatever. So like maybe if an endeavor recruits more brain cells and it activates your gray matters more, maybe that could be classified as more worthwhile. Who knows? But then again, neuroscience has also proven that body and mind are connected, and that exercising will benefit, will sharpen the mind, and vice versa. So I don't know. It's up to you to decide. Yeah. So anyway, go back to my drawing now. Yes, being an elitist is very good.